Ukraine released footage of a key bridge in Russia's Kursk region being destroyed. This is the second bridge struck less than 2 weeks into their cross-border incursion. At least 19 people, including a mother and her 6 children, were killed as Israeli airstrikes hit Gaza amid ongoing ceasefire negotiations.
Venezuelans held protests across the world to defend the opposition's claim to victory in last month's disputed presidential election.
The Ukrainian military released footage showing what it said was the destruction of a key bridge in Russia's Kursk region. This is the second bridge struck less than 2 weeks into Ukraine's cross-border incursion that took Moscow by surprise. According to Russian media, the attacks left the area with just one intact bridge. The strikes on bridges, apparently aimed to stymie a Russian counter-push in Kursk, could mean that Kyiv intends to seek a foothold in the region, or at least signal to Moscow that it plans to do so. Analysts say that although Ukraine could try to consolidate its gains within Russia, it might be a risky maneuver given Kyiv's limited resources, as supply lines extending deep into Kursk would be vulnerable to Russian strikes. The incursion has already boosted Ukraine's morale, sapped by a failed counter-offensive last summer and months of grinding Russian gains in the eastern Donbas region.
Ukraine offers a rare look inside a detention center housing Russian troops captured in battle. As dozens of prisoners of war were seen at the center, Vadim, the deputy head of education work at the prison, describes the conditions the inmates live in.
Кожен військовополонений у нас забезпечений спальним місцем, матрасом, постільними речами, подушкою, одіялом, речами першої необхідності, тобто ложка, тарілка, кружка, зубна паста, щітка, порошок, мило, це все видали, забезпечили одягом. Кожному військовому полоненому прогулянка надається кожного дня, не менше 1 години. Баня раз на тиждень проводиться.
According to the facility's officials, more than 300 captives have passed through the center since the start of Ukraine's Kursk incursion, 80% of them being conscripts, whilst many soldiers showed little resistance when taken captive, according to the center. It remains unclear how many Russian soldiers were captured by Ukrainian troops during their raid in Kursk.
Israeli airstrikes across Gaza killed at least 19 people as the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken headed to the region to seal a ceasefire deal. The dead included a mother and her 6 children who were killed in an Israeli strike on their house, according to a local hospital. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken headed to the region to try and seal a ceasefire deal after months of contentious negotiations. The latest casualties come as the US and fellow mediators Egypt and Qatar appeared to be closing in on a deal after 2 days of talks in Doha, with American and Israeli officials expressing cautious optimism. Hamas has signaled resistance to what it says are new demands by Israel, and the long-running talks have repeatedly stalled. Mediators have spent months trying to halt the fighting, efforts that gained new urgency amid rising fears of an all-out war across the Middle East.
Venezuelans across the world responded to a call from their country's political opposition, the Democratic Unity Platform, and took to the streets to defend the faction's claim to victory over President Nicolás Maduro in last month's disputed presidential election. In Lisbon, protesters showed copies of the election results presented by the opposition, which give 67% of the votes to Edmundo González, more than 7.3 million votes, and only 30% to Maduro, who will have won 3.3 million votes. Demonstrators also called on worldwide governments to show their support behind González and express support to Venezuelans who are fearful in their home country of speaking against Maduro and his allies.